Got to remind you, we'll move on very quickly to the next session on pea. So, please be in your seats. We're about to start with that. As already told you, the tea and coffee is running continuously. Feel free to step up anytime. Come back to the hall for the sessions. Just two more sessions before we wind up with the gala closing reception. So this is the Global Pea Outlook, yellow, dun, and green peas. On the panel, I'd like to invite Farhan Adam, Marina Commodities of Canada. Please also welcome Hannah Castle from AGT Foods Australia. Thank you, sir. Up next, Will Watchorn of Glencore. Muhammad Ahmed of Awam Group, Pakistan. And Rakesh Khemka of Uma Exports from India. This Global Peas Outlook, yellow, dun, and green peas, is sponsored by Marina Commodities. So there's a change in the backdrop. Mr. Vijay Iyengar is not on the panel, but we have Will Watchorn of Glencore. With that, I'll hand it over to the panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Farhan Adam from Marina Commodities in Canada. I'm honored to be your moderator for the 2018 Global Pea Outlook session. I would like to thank GPC for this wonderful opportunity and the many sponsors for this event. I promise to do my best to keep you all entertained for the next 50 minutes. Our format this afternoon will consist of presentations from our distinguished panel. We'll focus on the supply side first and then move on to the demand side. After the presentations, I will ask the panel a few hot questions to warm them up for the Q&A session from the audience. Does that sound good? Let's get started. I'm humbled to be in the presence of such an esteemed panel of experts today who will be sharing their immense knowledge and passion for our industry. Please join me in welcoming Will from Glencore, who will enlighten us with Black Sea and Baltic origin peas. I will personally like to thank him because he just joined us on a very short notice, which is an hour back. Mr. Ahmed from Awam Group, who will share us with an update from Pakistan. Ms. Hannah from AGT, Australia, who will enlighten us with Australian peas. And of course, Mr. Rakesh from Uma Exports, who will fill us in with what is happening in India. And I, of course, will do my best in providing updates from Canada and USA. It has certainly been a rocky year for the pea market in India. A devastating 50% duty on yellow peas was imposed during the end of the year, and now these quantitative restrictions. Have they really impacted the pea trade? I'm sure we will be hearing more about that today, along with Mr. Trump policies, which will certainly add some unique flavor to the pea trade in China. Peas and politics, two peas in a pod. Just to give a brief update, the world pea production of 2018-19 is set to decrease by 10%. But due to the carryover stocks, we realize only a 5% decline. Without further ado, let's now hear from the experts on how well we did this year and what the forecasts are for the 2018-19. Let's start off with Ms. Hannah from Australia.
Thanks, Farhan. As the seventh largest producer of peas globally, I'm thrilled that Australia gets to go first in talking about peas today. Please bear with me as we don't have millions of tonnes like some of the other origins to talk about. Field peas are Australia's fifth largest pulse crop by total area and total production, with about 200,000 hectares grown each year. They are predominantly grown in southern Australia and have been relatively stable in total area planted for over the past 5 to 6 years, with prices delivering suitable gross margins for farmers. Green peas and white peas don't get much of a mention as they only make up a small portion of the Australian crop, with Casper or Dun type dominating production. Seeding occurs in May with harvest in October-November, and Casper yields are very susceptible to frost events. The 16-17 marketing year saw our biggest pea export since 2010, with 400,000 tonnes of production versus the usual 200 to 300,000. However, with the recent tariffs and now bans into India, we expect to finish up this year with much lower export numbers. The effect of this hasn't been as great on total stocks remaining, as we have seen lower production again this year at 275,000 tonnes on the back of declining prices and lower yields. We've also been lucky to see China come into the market, which is offsetting some of the lost Indian demand. Traditionally, India has taken 50% of our total pea export program, but for this current marketing year, they have only taken about 35%, and total volume is only at around 30,000 tonnes until March versus 65,000 for the same period last year. Comparatively, China has taken 14,000 tonne versus less than 1,000 the previous season for the same period. Our difficulty now is, even though China represents a new demand opportunity, our local price has kicked up as it has represented the cheapest pulse protein source in Australia, providing huge potential for the Australian feed market, which takes 10 to 11 million tonnes of feed grain each year, and also into the local farmers who also grow these and will feed them out. In the last 4 or 5 years, FOB values of peas have been quite strong, but they've reached their lowest price since 2011 in the current season. Australia has just started to see the use domestically of peas for pet food manufacturing, which we hope will grow along with the human consumption domestic market, both of which remain quite small at the moment. In terms of an outlook for Australia for 2018, I feel it's less acres planted. It's hard to say as seeding has only just begun, maybe 5 or 10%, but with lower prices persisting and the timing of the tariffs and now ban in India, our expectation is that more area will go to other pulses such as Kabuli chickpeas, which grow in similar soil conditions. Even with the recent rally in local prices, it's still not as favourable compared to some other crops, including some of the cereal crops of choice. There's also been some throwback issues of older varieties this year, with the traditional Dun type appearance coming through some of the seeds, which has led to some cross-contamination just at a farmer level. This is meaning that farmers need to purchase fresh seed in most cases rather than utilise some of their own stock on farm. I guess it all depends on weather conditions, which everyone's already alluded to is quite dry in Australia at the moment, but we expect total production or area to be down maybe 15% this year.
All right, thank you, Anna. There were some stats on these slides over there, but I don't think anybody can read that. Well, these slides will be available later on, and I'm sure those presentations will come by. As we all know, Black Sea and Baltic origin has become a very important supplier for peas. Will now provide us with a short update on these supply estimates and the current situation in that area.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll start in the Black Sea with Russia. We've come off a recent record crop. The government figures out of Russia are 3.2 million tonnes of peas for the year, which is quite a bit above what StatPub have been showing. The crop has spread further, but also the domestic consumption has increased in Russia. We are seeing more use for animal feed because of the EU ban on, the Russian ban on the import of EU meat products. The Russian meat market has exploded, which has increased demand for home-fed proteins. In Russia, we expect the crop to be down, give or take, 20% of area. But the main point to remember is last year's yield was absolute records. And today, the crop is very, very dry. It's hot. The temperatures have been 10 to 12 degrees over the average. It was seeded late. It needs a drink. In Ukraine, after initially thinking we were going to see the area down 20% because the prices are poor, again, late seeded, the farmers have actually put the peas in, so we think actually the area should be around unchanged. Again, it's been hot and dry. but they're forecasting some rain over the next 2 weeks. It's difficult to get an idea whether it's going to be enough. The other two Black Sea countries to remember are the two smaller ones, Romania and Bulgaria, predominantly harvest sellers, new entrants into the market. We think the crop in that area will be down 10 to 15%, but because it's quite a small crop in a big area, it's difficult to really get a firm handle on what will be there. Moving up into Europe, France used to be a big player. Crop area very similar year on year. Very robust domestic demand for feed, increased starch demand. We've seen opening of new lines for starch production in France, which is really removing the French from being an exporter of volume. In the Baltics, yes, bigger producer, but the prices are very poor up there. They're struggling. We think the area will be down 25%. The area on the beans has moved predominantly to the faba beans, which has replaced them, because the farmer likes to have a pulse in the ration because of the nitrogen-fixing production. Pretty much on the...
So, what's your expected production numbers over there? And let's combine like Russia and Ukraine. What's your...
if we look at the two together, we would think there's going to be production of around 3 million tons.
Russia and Ukraine
Russia and
combined?
Ukraine put together, you've probably got around 30 to 40,000 tons in the other two, Romania, Bulgaria. French production, we think, will be around 600,000 tons. The thing to remember in the Baltics is there's a very heavy carry-out, and also there's a heavy carry-out in Russia as well. If you take the government figures in Russia, potentially there's 600,000 tons of peas, but they're up in Siberia. If the price doesn't move up, they're not going to come for export, they're going to be fed. The Baltics has probably got around 200,000 tons of carry-out. But again, where prices are today, you've got to remember soy meal is $500 in Spain, and it's 46 Pro. Peas are 23, and it's 250, so it's a straightforward calculation. These products are going to move to feed.
It can, for sure, for sure. I'll hear more about you. I'll now talk about North America, who is still the largest producer of peas in the world. Even though we are faced with such large tariff and restrictions, we found a way to keep our growers busy in shipping. Let's find out how. Let's start off with USA peas, as their production are relatively small to affect the world trade. In 2017, the total estimated production of peas was around 176,000 of yellows and 150,000 tons of green peas. In 2018, according to StatPub sources, they expect the production will decrease significantly to 125,000 tons of yellow peas and only 90,000 tons of green peas. USA has a very strong demand for food aid tender, in which many of these peas are consumed. And for their exports, India and China have been their predominant markets. The USA green peas are very well regarded for their premium quality and are sold at huge premiums. So the green peas would have more effect than the yellow peas in the world market. That completes the USA update now. Let's get into the Canadian peas. According to Saskatchewan's Agriculture's first crop report of the season, seeding of this year's crop has just started, with only 1% of all the intended crops now planted. A very cool and late spring has delayed field work across the province. Let's start off with the green peas S&D in Canada. I can't make that work, so anyways. As you can see, we have included data from StatPub. However, we have a slight difference of opinion in our estimates, which I would like to discuss. In 2017, the production estimates were approximately 450,000 tons, with carryover of 120,000 tons, giving approximately less than 600,000 tons of green peas to market to the world. This year, the quality has been decent in Canada and has been very easy to market. We expect about 350,000 tons in exports and 150,000 tons of the domestic feed, wastage, and seed use, resulting in an ending inventory of 100,000 tons. Perfect, thank you. So as you can see that India has been always the predominant market for green peas. In 2018, we expect a 15% increase in acreage and expect a 530,000 tons of green pea production, whereas the StatPub estimates are higher and they expect 580,000 tons of production. Carry-in would be about 100,000 tons or so, and we would have about anywhere from 630 to 700,000 tons to market. We expect a strong export of 450,000 to the world, and especially with a decline in production in USA, Canada will definitely take a lead. Seed, feed, and wastage, which again would be 130,000 tons, with a small carryover of only 50 to 100,000 tons in 2019. Normally, the biggest market for green peas has always been India, followed by China. Philippines and Colombia are also a continuous buyer of Canadian green peas. But with the recent ambiguity of quantitative restrictions of import peas in India, green peas are silent, and their fate is unknown. We'll discuss that later when Rakesh will have a chance. Now let's move on to yellow peas in Canada. In 2017, the production estimates are approximately 3.6 to 3.7 million tons, with a carryover of 200,000 tons, giving anywhere from 3.8 to 3.9 million tons to market to the world. The domestic feed, wastage, and seed use was about 900,000 tons. Although our biggest buyer, India, was on the sidelines, we still expect to export about 2 to 2.2 million tons. We have already seen China becoming the major buyer for our peas. Canada has already exported more than 900,000 tons until the end of March, and we are forecasting this number to be anywhere from 1.5 to 1.6 million tons, leaving us with a carryover of 8 to 900,000. In 2018, we expect a 10% reduction in acres and also expect a 3.3 million ton production with 8 to 900,000 tons of carryover will give us 4.2 million tons to market. We still expect to export about 2 to 2.4 million tons, with the largest buyer again being China. Ending inventory of 8 to 900,000 will be available, and depending on India's government's policy, that could be a game changer. And of course, there are rumors from Mr. Trump's soybean duties, which will certainly leave China consuming a lot more peas for feed. At the moment, the growers do not like these current prices in Canada, but they continue to support at $7 a bushel. They have hardly hedged any of the new crop product. We feel less than 5% has been sold so far. With a strong duty and restriction on peas, the growers never panicked. Our growers are very strong. They remain very strong holders, and these prices, they are in no rush to sell. And they feel that India might come in again and will quickly creep up the prices. At these numbers, they can sell to the feed market any day. So they are in no hurry to sell. India has been the key to the pea trade. And I'm sure we are all anxious to hear about what is happening in India. But before India, let's talk with Ahmed about what Pakistan is up to.
Thank you, Farhan. Hello, everyone. Pakistan market is not as big, definitely, if we compare to India. But after, I think, India and China, Pakistan do buy a lot of yellow peas. In 2016, Pakistan bought 234,000 tons of yellow peas. 2017 was pretty much the same, 225,000. And up till now, Pakistan has bought 65 to 70,000 tons. So it's roughly around 17,000 tons a month. Current maximum consumption in Pakistan is in the month of Ramadan. So 1 month before that, we have a consumption which is almost double than the normal months. Right now in Pakistan, stock levels for yellow peas are very low. The only stock is what cargo is coming at the port. Few vessels have delayed, and because of that, prices have really gone crazy. Today, if you have stock in Pakistan, realization is about $340. Um, and if you talk about delivery after 15, 20 days, realization is around 280 or $290. So which tells you that how much short currently yellow pea is in Pakistan. The Pakistan population is 200 million people. So if you see the demand compared to 200 million people, it's not as much. The reason is that Pakistani population is not vegetarian. And there are few people who eat pulses, and mainly people who can't afford, who likes cheap food, goes for pulses. Yellow peas is one of the cheapest product. You have seen that prices of yellow peas falling from highs of 400 to 250, but we haven't seen any change in demand in yellow peas. That's shocking to us also. But if you see the prices of other pulses, they have also fallen down same way. Like desi chickpeas, which went up to 800 or maybe a little more, has come down to 550. So overall, yellow peas consumption has been pretty much same. Thank you.
Thank you. Rakesh, everybody wants to know what's happening in India with all these tariffs and now these quantitative restrictions. Let's first talk about how much you think India imported so far.
I think India imported so far around, estimates are around 1.5 million tons this year, from you can say July till April or maybe March, you can say.
Yeah, I agree because Canada hardly 200,000 tons is
Yeah, hardly.
exported.
Basically, major of our imports have come from Ukraine, Russia, Romania, and other this Red Sea, Black Sea countries.
And what is your consumption per month in India?
See, seeing the price levels of chickpeas, since the chickpeas has gone down, the right now monthly consumption is around 150,000 tons, you can say. So the consumption has come down, and it may, again, you know, if the prices keep on rising, it will come down again, because people will start consuming chickpeas and other pulses which are available in India. And currently, government is discouraging import of yellow peas as they believe that it is replacing chickpeas and tur dal, and government wants to maintain MSP so that the farmers can get good price and farmers can earn in India.
But these restrictions, do you think this will continue? And there is another rumor, I don't know how far that's true, that although India has restricted 100,000 tons of import, people have licenses to import 400 to 500,000 tons.
See, well, I think these restrictions are going to continue till the prices come in a very balanced way, so that the farmers, government gets satisfied that yes, farmers are getting good return for their crop. And number two, the rumors which they are saying that they have got around 400,000 tons or 500,000 tons of license, I don't think so, because today being the last date of submission with the government for the payment made already, advance payment made already, or the LC done. So I don't think so government has announced what is the quota or they have given any licenses as yet. They are rumors only.
But what's your opinion?
I don't think so, because in the notification only they mentioned that they won't give anything beyond 100,000 tons. And I don't know what government will think and, you know, decide, but I don't think they will give anything beyond 100,000 tons.
So to understand that quantitative restriction, this 100,000 tons applies from anywhere from the BL date of April 24th and onwards?
Yes.
And that continues only for the next 2 months?
Yeah, government is just, you know, this is, they've announced, but I think they will extend the period. They will extend the period, and they may extend the period for another 3 months, 6 months, anything.
I see, because it is the reason behind all this is to increase desi chickpea prices.
Desi chickpea price, tur, government don't want yellow pea to come into India, means whatever item which replaces chickpea and tur dal, they don't want that to come into India. They want to encourage consumption of chickpea, tur dal, and domestic pulses more.
So does this restriction apply to green peas or not? Because
See, there's a, yes, right now under the HS code it applies, but we have applied with the government that since the green peas consumption is totally different from yellow pea, it cannot be used as a replacement for chickpea or tur dal. So it will take time, but yes, I hope the government will release this.
So far the green peas is still
Yes, yes.
in the air.
So far it is still restricted.
Okay. Hannah, with again dun peas being mainly going into India, what's the second plan for Australia?
Yeah, so typically most of the done peas are going into Tuticorin, and obviously we've seen a reduction in volume overall this season. I think we'll just see planting down for new crop, obviously, but with the existing stock that's remaining, some will go into stock feed, and we're hoping to push more into China that's really emerging as a volume opportunity for us.
So the China, are they taking this for feed or are they taking it for human consumption?
I believe it's going for feed.
And what is the value today into China?
Some recent levels that traded were around the 320 mark, CFR into China. So it's probably a tad higher today, but our currency is dropping a little bit at the moment. So there's probably some opportunities.
So in the new crop, growers still plan to produce enough?
I think we'll see, a little bit less area go in, but obviously going to depend on the weather and how the yields turn out.
And when is the seeding starting in Australia?
At the moment. So in 4 or 6 weeks' time, we should have a good idea of how many acres have gone in and how the planting conditions have been.
So the growers have kind of decided as to they're putting it in ground or not now?
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right, okay. Will, what is your opinion with India again, with these quantitative restrictions? Your crop is going to come out soon. Let's talk about your weather. How is it looking so far?
The Russian crop was late seeded by roughly 2 to 3 weeks, but it's been hot and dry. If you look at the weather charts, if you looked at the 30-day weather, you would see there was a problem coming. If you look at the 60 to 90 days, you'd realise that March was one of the wettest they've had. So the crop's in fairly good condition. It does need rain in the next 1 to 2 weeks, otherwise we'll start to see the yields come down.
And with these quantitative restrictions, are there any vessels which were being loaded and anything that was going into India which is now disrupted? What's happening with that?
Bulk vessels, no. Containers, yes. We saw some cheap trades going into Pakistan and other origins. We've seen coasters trading into the Spanish market, the Italian market for feed, which is actually, the thing is, as the markets come down, it's buying demand for feed.
So basically all these extra peas, we don't have to worry.
Yeah, they're going to be consumed. At these sort of prices, the demand is going to be pulled away for the feed market, which is plenty big enough to consume everything that's left.
I see. And there were the rumors from Russia at one time, from China at one time that China will start consuming Russian peas.
Yep, I've heard that as well. At the moment, there is no protocol. There is some discussion that there's some overland stuff that goes by train through Siberia, but the volume's pretty small. But yes, if the Chinese switch on and start taking Russian peas, we look at the consumption they're taking out of Canada this year, they're taking, 98 million tonne of beans, so...
I see. So, Ahmed, Pakistan has enjoyed with all these defaults or whatever you call it, from, cargo being on water. What was the lowest number you bought?
I think the lowest price rated was $250, and I can understand your what you meant by enjoyment. So we were the one who faced the most difficult time because whenever there was a problem with India, prices came down and we had all high prices contracts. So yeah, we really enjoyed it.
But at these levels, I'm sure, the markets will support very well, 250, 260 number, whatever that number is. Because in Canada, you cannot buy these numbers. Is there anything coming out from Canada to Pakistan at all? Or?
See, Russia, Ukraine, all these CIS countries now, if the price difference between Canadian and Russian is more than $10, then Pakistan will only buy Russian, Ukraine, Baltic origin cargo. And if it's less than that, then we'll only for Canada origin. I don't remember buying Canadian origin for Pakistan this year. We haven't bought any. Yeah, and demand is good. These prices are really good. I mean, it's not only that good demand should be good, people should even stock at these prices, no? Because these are really low price.
So would your yellow peas go into feed as well in Pakistan or no?
I doubt. There are some other products which are cheaper, like you see in Africa, some tour business was done, $220, $230. So that is even cheaper. You can make some tur dal and put the other ones for the feed. So I don't think so. Still, it's going on the feed side.
I see. So Rakesh ji, what's your opinion in coming new crop, let's say Baltic region is from July, August, something like that?
Yeah, you got new crop Russian available
Yeah,
July.
July, August, and Canada, September, October, we will have 5 million tons of peas again in the world.
But I think India, it all depends upon the government, whether they allow import or not. But by my views, government won't allow the imports, any further imports till the prices stabilize in India, domestic market of chickpeas and tur dal especially. Because next year being the election year, government anyhow will be wanting to please farmers, and I don't think so government will allow any imports.
You don't think so? Huh?
I don't think so.
So, what do you think right now in the pipeline in India with yellow peas? Like, how much do you guys have in stock?
See, I heard I think around 400,000 tons, something around 250,000 tons in Western Port, 150,000 tons in Calcutta and Kakinada, other ports. Total 400,000 tons in stock in India and another 150,000 tons en route in containers and vessel load, which were loaded prior to 24th, on or before 24th.
Right. I know.
Because in any way, we cannot count on 25th loading until unless we get the quota or the license we require from the government.
So right now, the difference between desi chickpeas and yellow peas in the local market is very small.
Yeah, hardly $15, $20.
So does the desi consumption increase right now or no?
It will take some time, and I think it has picked up already. The market have reacted. It has gone up, And last week or you can say fortnight, the market has, not fortnight, last 10 days, the market has increased by 2%, something like that. So it's reacting. It obviously have an impact, no doubt. This policy of government to increase the chickpea price is good. But again, as a trader, we are losing.
But the government intervention definitely it creates problems for traders.
For everyone. Like we Indians are also suffering. There were cargoes when the government implemented 50% duty. So we had to pay duty and then we had to put the cargo for 4 months, 5 months in the warehouse. And when the price came into parity, then we are selling. So but the problem is for everyone, whether it be Indian or the foreign trader, anyone.
When this duty came into effect, I think it was almost October or November.
I think if I'm correct, it was around 8th November.
8th November.
Yes.
So I remember that we were all talking that these prices will go back to 2002, 2003 levels, which were almost $200 a ton. There were a lot of talks about that. People started shorting peas, and China came into big time at that time. And did you feel that effect in that region as well, or the prices in Baltic region was almost the same?
It went back in 2000.
No, recently, like when in November.
No, the prices have gone sideways, really. Farmer has reached the level now where the prices are too low. The farmer is not just a single commodity seller. He's got other commodities, the prices are better, it gives him a better return. He'll sit on the peas.
Because the biggest, with all these restrictions, China has opened up a lot. And with recent trade, not war, I would say, but, all these Mr. Trump's policies that you would call it, with soybean duties that may be imposed in China, these yellow pea numbers, S&D, will be skyrocketing. Like we will see huge demand for the feed industry, and already the yellow peas are going into feed into China. So I'm not sure this Indian policy, how much it will be good for India in the end of the day.
See, until unless there is any weather anomaly in India, until unless there is any drought, I think this policy will be good because India itself wants to become self-sufficient and self-dependent on pulses. So they want to promote farmers growing more pulses. And if the prices levels in India domestically are high, farmers will opt for pulses, growing pulses only.
Generally, the pulses in everywhere in the world are grown mainly for India.
Yes. Exactly.
Either it is Canada, Australia. India is largest consumer of pulses. So, what is happening is that everybody is planning to decrease production, and maybe we might not see that effect this year, but if this policy continues, the production of pulses will go down further, it seems.
See, lately,
and 1 year of bad weather will create a havoc in the world.
See, government again are taking steps, they are trying to prepare buffer stocks, which they will keep for at least a year or more than a year. And every day they are rotating the buffer stock. They're selling the old one and buying again the new one. So they are well planned in this. And I hope like weather is very unpredictable, If something is there, we are ready to face. We are after the government only. If there is any anomaly, we are ready to face.
I see. Ahmed, Pakistan is becoming a large importer of yellow peas. Why not import bulk vessels?
Well,
It's still 5 container documents. It's a big issue for yellow peas, isn't it?
I think all the big ones, big guns know they have retired from the business. The small ones have made them retire. So the 5 container business has destroyed the big traders, and now the business is being handled by small traders, and there are so many of them. So if a big gun brings up, like say 10, 15,000 tons, the 5 containers will keep on selling. They will take the loss of 5 containers, and he can't survive, no?
The yellow peas is almost like 250,000 tons a year. It's a decent size of imports into Bangladesh is also almost the same number. But in Bangladesh, there's hardly container trade. Like from Baltic origin, Bangladesh is also a big buyer for that? Or?
From the Baltics, no. not
No?
really.
Okay. So
Russian, yes.
sorry?
They take some Russian.
They do? Okay. All right. Because
But the Bangladeshi market is, I would say, they're more into they will take the bulk vessels because they have the economies of scale. They would traditionally normally be a Canadian buyer because they like the quality as well.
right. So yeah, the Russian, Ukrainian peas are not famous in Bangladesh at the moment.
They're starting to take them.
They're starting to take. All right. Okay.
We've seen a few vessels go that way.
Let's now hear from our audience with questions they may have for us. Hopefully, we have enough time to answer them. How do these questions come up?
I think it should come on your mobile.
On my cell phone? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have my app.
Well, you can take mine.
Just let me check.
Sorry about that. You got too much. All right. Thank you. Okay, the first question is, with soya meal, soybean prices, corn and wheat trending higher, do you see peas entering feed markets in South and Central America for poultry and swine? I guess I will answer that question, or do you?
Not being a South American expert, but I would think that's less and less likely because of the production of soybeans being so close to home in South America that you would expect them to stay on the traditional beans. It's where you've got to transport the beans to. We're seeing the peas being used.
All right. The other question was the import of Black Sea yellow peas allowed directly to Chinese ports legally and complying with all these issues. So I think we answered that question before.
Yeah, we went through that one before.
Can you go over FOB prices for yellow split peas? You don't do that, all right?
I think you missed a few.
Have I?
How much quantity of CYP?
How much quantity of CYP, which is, I guess, yellow peas?
Canadian yellow peas.
Canadian yellow peas, okay. Would find other homes post-Indian scenario of increased import duty on quantity restriction. Pricing of Canadian farmers, traders for new crop. As I said, the Canadian yellow peas, the market, China has taken over that market. Like even India is now out of the equation the whole year. We only exported 200,000 tons. So China has become the biggest market. And if these soybean meal duties come into play into China, then a lot more peas will be consumed there. Okay, so the next question is, we are very strange there is no people from China to attend this panel of peas. Now China is #1 buyer of peas, total 1.27 million tons. Yes, I agree. Next year we will have someone over here from China. I know somebody there already. There's a question from Rennie. There are new value-added plants being built in North America. What do you see happening in terms of new usage of yellow peas by value-added sector? Yes, there are a lot of fractioning happening over there. As I said, you know, the local consumption, we are estimating 900,000 tons, which is being also used for pet food. And there was a big plant coming up in Portage, but that has been delayed for another 2 years or so. So in North America, yes, there is a lot of consumption happening in peas at the moment.
And that's it? Was this the last one? Or?
I think I'm missing some. How much premium do you think the market can pay US origin versus Canada for green peas? It seems all the questions are based on North America. So. Obviously, there are a lot of different varieties in USA. There is banner type and striker types, and even India pays big premiums on green peas.
Yes.
Well,
I think US green peas, we can pay a premium of $20 over Canadian green peas. And we are able to sell like in the domestic market also at a premium.
there are different varieties, obviously,
yes,
and then,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
there are, I've even heard almost $100 differences
Yeah,
in
maybe.
lot
Yes,
of,
exactly.
premium.
Yes.
Ahmed, there's a question directly for you. Ahmed from Awam, can you please update on GMO issue from Pakistan quarantine?
Well, Pakistan plant quarantine have announced pretty earlier also, but now they are saying that they would enforce it, that Pakistan will only import non-GMO cargo into Pakistan. So countries who are exporting should mention clearly on the phytosanitary certificate that the product is non-GMO. With Canada, Pakistan plant quarantine has an agreement, so Canada does not need to write on the phyto, but for other countries where we don't have an agreement, they do need to write it.
The other question is, how is the Baltic quality of peas different from Ukraine, Russia, and Canada? And what is the carryover from Baltic states? Of course.
The carryover in the Baltic states is between 200 and 250,000 tons, we think, this year. Don't forget they're 25% less planted next year. In terms of the quality, it's very subjective. You remember we talk about Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania with these countries. They had last year massively different weather at harvest. The northern state, Estonia, had the worst weather. So it's been very variable out of the Baltics this year. What we found is some very good quality and also some lower quality in that part of the world.
So, in that region, like in Canada, we are mainly, we are now doing farmer recipes as well, but in Russia, Ukraine, which are the largest market for bees, do we have that capacity to ship clean product as well, or is it just farmer dressed?
Predominantly, it's all farmer dressed. It's the same for the Baltics as well. It's a bulk handled system. Most of the peas are coming out of Russia. They're transshipped in coasters, bought out through Kavkaz. As you know, Russia has had an enormous wheat crop and barley crop. So the direct deep water ports being Novorossiysk and Taman, they have been monopolized by the big commodities because they can move more volume. So the pulses have been pushed out to Rostov, out of Rostov, Azov, to come through Kavkaz. With that sort of movement program, it doesn't work to clean them.
All right. There is another question. How much part of yellow peas demand of India will shift to desis if import restrictions continue? That's for you.
I didn't get you.
How much part of yellow peas demand of India will shift to desis if the import restrictions continue?
Well, if there's no yellow peas in India, we have to shift to yellow peas, chickpeas and other pulses. I think India is having around 400,000 tons ready stock in hand, another 150,000 in pipeline. So it will last maximum for 2 months if government don't allow anything beyond that quantity. So we have to automatically shift to other pulses, whether it be chickpeas, tur dal or anything. And the production in India of yellow peas is very small. It's around 400,000 tons to 500,000 tons. We expect next year that it may go to 800,000 tons to 900,000 tons. But when like production is very small, but we will be forced to shift to other crops like chickpeas and all.
So there could be a big demand for desi chickpeas in your local market coming soon. That
Yes, I
since There aren't much yellow peas there. Probably a month or 2 months of supply.
Yeah, obviously there will be good demand of chickpeas, and government expecting this have come out with this policy. And just now I received a message that Delhi DGFT, Director General of Foreign Trade, has advised their offices not to issue any registration certificate for yellow peas until further notice.
What does that mean now?
Government won't be issuing any registration certificates against the advance payment, means they are until further notice from the head office.
So that means that even that 100,000 tons
No,
that
100,000 tons is already on sea, or we have imported around 40 to 50,000 tons already, and another 50,000 tons or 60,000 tons already on sea. That will be imported. But we were expecting further quotas, registration certificates for the contract for which we have already made advance payment.
so that was the 500,000 tons
Yes,
that I was talking about.
yes. So government has asked their offices to hold that registration certificate. They won't be issuing it.
So even if they're afloat, they...
No, afloat, they will allow. Anything loaded before 25th April, they have to allow under para 1.05 of import-export policy of DGFT, they have to allow that. But anything loaded on or after 25th, they won't allow.
There's a question for you, Bill. We find that Russian yellow peas sometimes have a coat of dust on them. Farmer dressed Canadian product does not have same. What is going wrong in Russia?
Difficult one to answer. It's Russia. It can be very variable.
You got to be on the ground and see some yellow peas for yourself in Russia and find out.
Indeed. I mean, the qualities we see out of Russia this year has been some of the best peas we've seen from Russia in a long time. But the Russian farmer, you're dealing with some units that are 20,000 hectares, some units are 2 hectares.
Really?
So the style, the varieties, the husbandry and the handling techniques are vastly different.
I see. There's a question about what about split yellow peas and split green peas supply demand. I don't have those stats on me, so I can't say that. How much next Black Sea crop do you expect?
Including the carry-in, around 3 million tons, but it could be down to 2.5 and it could be up to 3.5. You tell me what the weather's going to do in the next 3 weeks.
And how much is that used in feed?
Well, we expect the Russian feed demand to rise. Give or take, it could be anything up to 2 million tons of feed demand. But again, with the high soy meal prices, the feed demand is only rising.
So approximately 3 million tons Black Sea production, and almost 2 million tons of that would be
2 million tons of domestic consumption.
So there's a big domestic consumption in Russia for peas as well.
Yes, it's growing all the time because Russia stopped importing meat from the EU. They were the EU's biggest customer for meat products, pork, chicken predominantly. So all of that production has now shifted into Russia. A lot of that production is in Siberia, where a lot of the carry-out is. And those products, it just doesn't pay to move them to the port. It's cheaper to feed them to the pigs.
There is a question, what's the new crop peas from Russia? And then Canada as well, but...
Is in price?
Yeah, new crop.
We're not going to be putting prices out of Russia at the moment because to compete and to where consumers think they need to be, I need to be sub-wheat price, and I'm not going to buy a ton of peas at that.
Canadian price would be similar as to what is happening right now. China is anywhere from $295 through $305, and for India, $325, $330 in containers, but obviously there's not much trade happening on that. Are yellow peas really a good substitute for soybeans? I would say so for feed, yes.
Yeah, well...
the price is right, yes. For the feed market, that works very well.
Yeah.
With growing starch requirement in China, peas imports are 1.2 million. How much Indian demand it can replace in next 1 to 5 years' time? China imports are 1.2. How much Indian demand it can replace? Well, again, China is a growing market. The P values are, it is the cheapest pulse in the world, and China will continue to import in large quantities. How much it can replace, it all depends on the feed consumption as well. If the feed market picks up, the China can, from 1.5, can easily go to 2.5 million tons. What is the scope of pea protein in the coming years?
As in growth. There's statistics that the North American fractionation market's growing 15 to 18% a year. There's a lot of plants going in, a lot of development. It's becoming an extremely fashionable product because it's gluten-free. I think that's a very important point, that the domestic consumption in North America will increase given people's health concerns, the number of Americans who claim to be gluten intolerant. They've got to get the protein, and peas is a very good source.
I got a question for you, Hannah. You think Australian farmers will ever be competing for volumes of peas with Black Sea in the next few seasons?
I highly doubt it, Farhan, but obviously it's the lowest price pulse crop in Australia at the moment. So in the short term, and unless India opens its doors again, I highly doubt it.
What is the total demand for feed peas in Spain and Italy? You mentioned meal prices at quite high levels, so this will create new demand.
Yes. Spain buys 4 million tons of soy meal a year.
Sorry?
Spain buys 4 million tons of soy meal a year. So if soy meal prices stay high, peas stay low, then they'll consume it.
Okay. I think we are almost finished on time. Maybe last question. How do we see the stock to use ratio of global yellow peas this year versus last year? The year has not ended yet, so I think we both can put a note on that. I would say that, again, human consumption, yes, we can see that the consumption level has been lower, but in terms of the feed production, the feed acceptability of yellow peas has enlarged a lot. So the stock to use ratio
Coming down. Given the current price structure,
is
it's the cheapest protein. It's got to be fed.
okay. I think we have answered most of the questions.
I have one question. Rakesh ji, how much is your crop dependent on weather? I mean, there are ways to get certain confirmation of a crop. Do you think it's 100% dependent on crop? On the weather?
See, it's not 100% dependent on weather. Government has been working on irrigation system, and they have been planning to join all the rivers. So even if there is drought, they can irrigate the fields.
So they're using it for pulses also?
Yes, for every crop. Yes, if there is a severe drought and there is no rain, even if the monsoon fails, then it will be a tough situation for India. But this year, the prediction is that we will be having a normal monsoon, almost 96% normal. So I don't think there will be any issue this year.
All right, I would like to thank all of you for your valuable time, especially Will. Again, I know it was very short notice for you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And please enjoy your time in Colombo, and remember to eat your peas, whether they are green, yellow, snow, sugar, snap, or mushy. Life is good when we have world peace.
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Farhan. Thank you, everyone.
On that note, peace be with the panel too. And may I request the panel to give us a memento photograph up front and then exit stage from right. Thank you, Farhan Adam, for that wonderful session. Great session, the Peace Panel. This Peace Panel was sponsored by Marina Commodities. We'd like to thank our sponsor for doing such a wonderful job. Here's the Peace Panel, ladies and gentlemen. Give a big round of applause. They kept it light and they kept it full of information.